I've been sort of tripping over this language. The urban citizens lack experiences in how food is produced as well as how good and healthy meals are prepared, and had a really hard time coming up with a presentation that would address that, because my experience is actually completely opposite. That when when my staff and I sometimes go out into the neighborhoods to serve, what we find is not that people are having a hard time knowing what to do with the food, it's that they cannot get their hands on it. There are structural barriers to this. And so I spend most of my time when I'm talking about Arcadia trying to disabuse people in power of notions that it's as easy as teaching someone how to cook. That there are structural barriers to access to health that are experienced in varying levels by everyone, but most especially and most egregiously by low-income people. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that, and I'm also want to tell you that I am your Cassandra. The United States, we are the world leader in lots of stuff, including obesity and chronic disease, and I also feel like I need to apologize to you on behalf of my nation, just in general. I didn't vote for him. Every day is a fresh nightmare. So we're all addicted to Twitter, and yeah, I want to stay. But they need me back in DC. So I sort of reject that out of hand. Let's see what we've got. That's not it. There we go. So I'm presenting to you the United States as a cautionary tale. You're going to see a lot of numbers, and there's a reason why I want to present this to you, because I think that you all have a different healthcare system than we do, and you also have a different and longer food traditions than we do, but we are powerful, and we are insidious, and we are coming, and if you don't guard against us, you are going to be putting up the same numbers that we do. So as I mentioned, Arcadia, Big Green Bus. We were started by a restaurateur who wanted to get local food into his restaurants, and when he went out into the farmers markets to find that, he found that they were way too expensive and in way too short supply to do anything, and he realized that if he couldn't afford the fruits and vegetables, what was everybody else doing? And so then that led him to pull on the threads of public health, and he created Arcadia. Instead of worrying about his restaurants, he created a nonprofit, put a lot of money into it. And so what we do is address the entire food system in a very local way. We are adding to the supply of food. We have a farm on the grounds of an old farm of George Washington's where we train military veterans to be farmers. The United States needs 700,000 new farmers over the next 20 years, or we're all going to starve. We use that farm as a campus for school children with farm camps and field trips to introduce them to food at its source, and all of the kids get hands-on cooking experience and harvesting and understanding the miracle that is agriculture, and they all go home and they all tell their parents, I want beets and carrots. But that is a useless act if you do not follow up then with finding a way for the parents, particularly low-income parents, to get beets and carrots at an affordable rate in a convenient way. So that's what Arcadia works on, and the reason that we work on it I will show you in a second. Come on. You can do it.
Use the keyboard?
There we go. No, I'm going to do it. So in general, there's a saying in our country, it's not a very popular saying, but you pay the farmer or you pay the doctor. And so that is what I want to talk to you about, because we basically pay the doctor a whole lot of money. And then the subhead is how to feel superior to the United States again. All of you, pat yourselves on the back because you're about to feel good. So I came to this world, that's me, I came to this world without a background really in food or in nonprofits. I used to be a national security reporter. I spent an awful lot of time in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so consequently, I spent a lot of time in the hospitals visiting soldiers who were injured in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is Colonel Greg Gedson. He lost both of his legs in an IED attack in Baghdad, and you might know him from the movie Battleship. He punches an alien in the face. So Greg is an amazing person, but I'm using him as an example of that. This is the signature injury from the war in Iraq. When you go over an IED or a roadside bomb, same with Afghanistan, they explode from the bottom and they tend to take off your legs. So when I went out in our mobile market, our mobile market, the very first time when I was learning what my job was going to be, I saw an awful lot of people in town, and many of them were missing lower limbs. And I said to my staff, wow, there's an awful lot of war veterans here. And they said, what? And I said, war veterans, they're missing their legs from IEDs, right? And they said, no. These are victims of diabetes. So I did some research. I'm a reporter. That's what I do. And in the 16 years of war that the United States has been involved in, we have 1,650 amputations from the Iraq and the Afghan wars since 2001. Do you have any idea how many diabetic amputations we have in the United States? In 1 year, try this one on for size. 108,000 lower limb amputations from diabetes. When I said I was your Cassandra, your warning tale, pay attention to this. Diabetes-related lower extremity amputations in 2014 alone. In 2010, it was 70,000. It's going up. Come here. So, one of the more alarming statistics I came across in doing my research here is that up to 55% of the people who undergo a lower limb amputation are going to be losing their other leg within 2 or 3 years. This number. African Americans are 3 times as likely to suffer an amputation for diabetes than a white American. And in the United States, this is believed to be a healthcare system problem. It's that they lack access to proper healthcare. What I'm telling you is that it's a food system problem. African Americans suffer egregiously in our country because our country is highly stratified in terms of race and income. And the issue here is not getting them better health care after they have diabetes. It's preventing everyone from getting diabetes, and that is a food system problem. And here's the food system in the US, and I suspect it's elsewhere as well, but we have 2 competing food systems. If you have money and access to a car, you can eat basically whatever you want. Jeff Bezos will deliver food to your home by drone. I can order from Peapod. I can go to the farmer's market down the street from me. In my neighborhood, I have 11 full-service grocery stores that I can walk to at any given time. I do not live in a food desert. However, 2 miles away, you heard the minister mention it this morning, a place called Anacostia. It's a neighborhood in DC on the other side of the river from where I live. There is one grocery store for 80,000 people. And you can imagine what those shelves look like and how far people have to travel in order to be able to access a healthy diet. And consequently, what most people do is eat at what is available. I have 2 minutes left, geez. They eat what's available at corner stores. And the impacts are massive. The poor in the United States are 2 times as likely to be obese than the wealthiest. And the food system matters because if nothing else, just because of the cost. More than 1 in 3 adults Americans have cardiovascular disease. 90% consume too much sodium. 37% and 40% of adults eat less than fruit one time a day. Come on, I gotta get extra time for this. Oh, she's standing in front of it. Miss, could you step aside? There you go. Here's where we get into 1.5 million Americans are diagnosed with diabetes every year. We spend $245 billion every single year treating diabetes, with $176 billion in direct medical costs. The total cost of these, of direct medical costs of chronic disease, which are the diseases that are caused by the food that we eat, which is half of all cancers, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes and obesity and all the attendant consequences, are about $750 billion. At least 500 billion of that is directly related to the food. 1 in 7 households in the United States can't reliably afford food in the nation. And I want to tell you that it sounds like we have something special going on. There's 45 million people in the United States that take food stamps. There's 43 million people in Europe who are food insecure, in the exact same situation that we're in. It's coming for you. Be very, very careful. And you all have either the benefit or the added disadvantage of universal health. You are going to have to pay those costs. Right now, we are offloading those costs to our citizens, and it's bankrupting people. But your governments are going to have to pay those costs. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This crazy thing I just included because who can do that kind of math? But the scientists who came up with this did. They looked at the rankings in the US of what the causes of death are going to be, and you can look across on the side. It's very small, but diabetes, yay, is climbing the ranks. And as the other causes of death in the United States are declining, diabetes is increasing by 4-fold. I spoke at a USDA conference a while back, and it was the one where they talk about pork bellies and futures and commodities and yields and profits. And I waited and I waited and I waited, and in this entire discussion of the agricultural system and all the wealth that we produce and export around the world, not one mention of health. I took the entire opening presentation and put it into a word cloud, and you see there is not one mention of creating health. We are all about creating wealth, not about creating health, and that has to change. There is one One thing that I want to share with you at the bottom, this is a very important study that just came out. SNAP is our word for food stamps. And at the top, we talk about basically what our adults who are on food stamps, what they're up against from a health perspective. They have a 50% higher mortality rate than non-SNAP adults, and they have a lower intake of fruits and vegetables. These things are not accidental. It's expensive to eat a healthy diet in the United States. But here's what's important. Some studies were done, and if you do a 10% subsidy on the cost of fruits and vegetables in the United States, you would see a mortality rate decline by 150,000 deaths each year. Compare that to a soda tax. 10% makes soda more expensive, and the decline in mortality is only 31,000. And then most importantly, that MMC at the bottom, that's a media outreach, a mass media campaign, and that is the least effective. It is not information that we need to be getting to people, but dismantling the structural barriers to getting food. And I just want to share with you how we do it. Our mobile market goes into food insecure neighborhoods. We do it from May until November. We harvest all of our food and we aggregate it with food from other local farmers, and then we accept and we double food stamps. So if you come to us with $10 in food stamps, you walk away with $20 in food. We also participate in another program that is DC funded, and it's unusual. I think it's the only one in the nation, where if you are below a certain level of income, you qualify for $20 a week in fresh fruits and vegetable vouchers that you can use at any farmer's market. This year it's funded to the tune of $750,000, and that's $750,000 that's going right into the pockets of our local farmers. So there's an economic boon to this as well. There is room for policy to make a real difference in this, but my plea to all of you is not to think that you can train your way out of the problem that we face with food. This is really about increasing access and reducing the structural barriers to it. And you know, I have so many people telling me, well, if only those people knew how to. I can tell you that I learn more from my customers about food than I can possibly teach them. They grew up eating this way. They don't have much money. What they need is not our patronage, or our patronizing attitudes towards them and what they know, but rather our support in just making it possible to get this food into their hands. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.